Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor podcast, Sooners podcast, brought to you by Olipop. My name is Brandon Drumm. I'm here with Parker Thune, and we have to start it out like this because we're sponsored. So, Parker, take it away.
That's right, Brandon. Well, again, you hear the ad reads, you hear us talk about Olipop on OU Insider Live. If you haven't checked him out yet, look, Olipop's taken over the soda space with a proprietary blend of 7 natural sweeteners that mimics the true sweetness and flavor of real sugar. It's vastly superior to any diet soda option that's sweetened with stuff you'd find in a chemistry lab somewhere. It's soda that you can feel good about drinking. Health benefits in every can, prebiotics to enhance digestive health, 9 grams of fiber in every single 12-ounce can of Olipop, and it comes in 14 delicious classic flavors: cola, cream soda, root beer, grape, orange. Whatever your particular soda proclivity is, Olipop's got a flavor for you. So check them out at drinkolipop.com. Use promo code ChampU20 for 20% off, or go pick one up at your local Walmart, Sprouts, Target, Whole Foods.
There you go. Go get you some Olipop, man. We really appreciate them sponsoring us. All right. On this version of the podcast, we are going to talk about ChampU BBQ, some returns there. We're going to talk about David Stone. We're going to talk about Taylor Tatum. We're going to talk about a lot of things. Jayshon Ross, what's going on there? Why hasn't he committed yet? He was so close. He was talking about doing it on Twitter, and now silence on the Oklahoma side. We'll dive into that. And we will dive into a whole lot more. Obviously, the 2 commitments of James Nesta and Ezekama, wide receiver, Dozie Ezekama. We'll get into all those things in this podcast. But first, we're going to start out with ChampU BBQ because that is the big news. You know, obviously, the commits are the big news, but those commits don't happen if the ChampU BBQ doesn't take place. And that's where it all started. So that's where we're going to start. As far as returns go, I'm going to be honest. I've never seen something like we saw this past weekend. Like, we had so many returns. I think the closest thing, Parker, for me, as far as those returns where they're just like nothing but positives. Now, Caden Massey's was a little bit of a meh return, you know, when it came to his stuff. But everybody else was very, very upbeat, very, man, this place I could see myself at, all that type of stuff. You hear about all these silent commits and all that type of stuff. And I think you have to akin it to maybe the Party in the Palace last year, where it just turned into a free-for-all at the point with David Hicks, Colton Vasek. I'm trying to think of who else was that.
Makari Vickers committed that weekend.
Yeah, Makari Vickers. I mean, it was something. And obviously others committed at the ChampU BBQ last year, but as far as like just names, I mean, PJ Adebawore obviously at the ChampU BBQ last year, but this just had more depth, I think, when it comes to names, who's who, and it turned out to be something that shocked us all. That's my take, man.
Yes. Well, and if you reflect on the last 2 weekends, Oklahoma has hosted, 41 official visitors between the 2 weekends. So a lot of OU's chips are out there on the table with the guys that they've brought into town in the month of June. And look, there are some that you can essentially write off at this point. For instance, Daniel Cruz is going to Texas. I think that's pretty commonly understood at this point in time. But I think what's most striking to me, Brandon, is, to be honest, there were some guys over these last couple of weekends that came in on official visits to Oklahoma, and I don't know that I expected the needle to move as much as it did. And I think Terry Bussey is the perfect example of this, right? Borderline 5-star guy by most recruiting services, and somebody that has every big offer in the country. He's weighing offers from some of the biggest programs in college football, LSU, Alabama, obviously the local powerhouses, if you will, at least on the recruiting trail in Texas and Texas A&M. So Bussey's a guy that comes in Norman with a ton of options. I didn't necessarily have super high expectations when it came to Oklahoma making a legit surge in his recruitment, but they really have. And it goes back, I think, to Emmett Jones and just how good at his job he has been since he stepped into his role as wide receiver coach at the University of Oklahoma. And you've seen this and the slew of commitments he's gotten to this point, whether via the portal and Brennan Thompson, the 25 class and Grayson Harris, but he's made his hay in the 24 class with Zion Kearney and KJ Daniels, and most recently, Dozie Ezekama. Now the question becomes, okay, who's the fourth wide receiver? Because Oklahoma has opened up to taking 4 receivers in the 24 class. And do you necessarily count on Bussey being number 4? No, not by any means. You cannot take anything to the bank, especially with official visits left on the table for that kid. But it feels like between him, Zion Raggins, and potentially Ivan Carrion, Oklahoma's got some really viable options when it comes to who could round out that class of receivers.
They really do. I guess we continually talk about Wesco, and fans want to talk about Wesco. I even got asked about this by an Oklahoma source yesterday, and they were like, do you think that Bryant Wesco would, if we were to win 9, 10, 11 games, if that would be something that could take place? And just knowing that he's committed to Clemson, I'm really finding that hard to believe, just because you don't see a lot of people decommit from Oklahoma. They were 6-7 last year. They didn't lose a lot of dudes, man. It's just one of those things. When you're committed to culture schools like that, you're getting culture kids. Therefore, it is very hard to lose those kids. But at the same time, when you look at Wesco's heritage, his history, family history, all that type of stuff, it points directly at Oklahoma, doesn't it? So I guess you never say never, right? Like, never say never. And I guess let's throw the hypothetical out here, Parker. If they win 9 or 10 games, maybe 11, maybe say they win the Big 12. Then this is all hypotheticals, folks. So don't sit there and go, oh, well, you're just making stuff up, or you're doing this, or you're doing that. Or you're sunshine pumping or whatever. That's not what we're doing. We're throwing hypotheticals out because there are people inside the Switzer Center who believe that they're not done there. Like, that's a fact. So do you, if they win 9, 10, 11 games, maybe even 12, win a Big 12 title, does Bryant Wesco come back into play, especially if the quarterbacks show out?
I wouldn't count on it. I think
that's how I feel.
Yeah, the two guys that were Oklahoma leans at one point in time that everybody has continually asked, well, is there a chance of flipping down the road? Those two guys have been Bryant Wesco and Peyton Pierce. Right. And I think there's a much more likely scenario in which Peyton Pierce turns back around and reevaluates things with Oklahoma than there is for Bryant Wesco, just because Clemson's a hard school to pull a kid away from.
Right.
Because the structure is very similar to Oklahoma, and you talked about the culture. And I think that with everything that ties Pierce to Oklahoma and how much potential there is for Oklahoma to be vastly improved on defense in 2023, that seems to be the more likely situation that could transpire in my mind. Is Peyton Pierce starts to get cold feet, getting close to signing day, and you're weighing whether to go up to Columbus, Ohio and play for Ryan Day or James Laurinaitis, or whether to just stay 2 hours from home and play for the coach you've always wanted to play for at the program that you grew up rooting for. Now, is it a foregone conclusion that happens? No, and his commitment to Ohio State is pretty solid right now. But even so, I don't think there's going to be anything that goes on at Clemson this fall that's going to leave that door cracked open for Bryant Wesco to take another look at things, if that makes sense. I expect Clemson to be a double-digit win football team. And if that's what they are, they're not in position to lose any of their top targets.
So when you were talking, I was listening to you, but I also skimmed through Twitter there for a second. It's all the funniest thing ever. So they've obviously reported that Damian Lillard and trade talks have now bogged down once again. Because every offseason, right, there's trade talks, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I know this is totally out of left field, but the person above it retweet quoted it with a gif of, look at that. Look, he's just like D Wade is pump faking. It's a shot fake every offseason. Constant shot fakes. All right, I'm sorry. That was just too funny not to talk about. It's NBA draft day, dude. You know where my head's at, man. I'm a big Thunder guy. So, anyways, but back to the ChampU BBQ. Let's talk about David Stone, because everybody's like, well, let's talk about defensive linemen, man. And that's all anybody wants to talk about is, are they going to land 4-star, 5-star, top 250, top 400 guys at the defensive line, continue to build those blocks? Well, the funny part is when you look at Oklahoma's defensive line right now, you have Dejon Terry, you have Jonah Laulu, who was a big transfer, right? Both those dudes were like elite transfers, right?
Sure.
Elite. You have Ethan Downs, who was in the top 150. You have Grayson Haltom, who was in the top 300. He was a 4-star out of high school. You have who else are we? PJ Adebawore, Marcus Stripling was a top 150 kid. Like, there's so many guys that I don't think Oklahoma fans realize how many top 150 D linemen they actually have, dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, again,
it's kind of funny.
Yeah, but that's part of the reason why I never understand the meltdown in the month of June, which happens every single year, regarding OU recruiting and why aren't things moving quicker than they're moving, and why is Oklahoma taking this 3-star kid? Well, it's because the coaches believe, based on their evaluations, that that's a guy that's capable of playing football at a high level at the University of Oklahoma. And sometimes the rankings don't tell the whole story, because how many of those top 150 guys over the last 5-10 years has Oklahoma brought in? And they haven't done a whole heck of a lot. Marcus Stripling's a perfect example. Been waiting and waiting and waiting on the breakout for him, and it just hasn't happened. So,
right,
you have to put faith in the coaching staff at the end of the day, regardless of what the rankings say, regardless of what your evaluation as a fan is. Brent Venables and his assistants are putting together a recruiting class of players that they believe in. If not, they wouldn't bother taking their commitment. And so, yeah, there is talent on this Oklahoma roster, but one of the things that I think we've talked about extensively over the last few weeks in particular is that when you look at some of the pivotal recruitments in the 2024 class for OU, and especially David Stone, pertaining to that conversation, there might not be, in a decade or longer, I don't know if there's been a more impactful recruitment for Oklahoma than that of David Stone. And
you're just setting up the meltdown, bro.
Well,
if it doesn't go their way.
Well, I mean, look, there's going to be a meltdown one way
There's
or the
going to be
other,
a
a big
meltdown. There's
one.
no way. Yeah, it's going to be the epic, the biggest of all time.
But my point is, as impactful as the Stone recruitment is, I think you can say the same to a lesser degree, understandably. But you can somewhat say the same about a lot of the top defensive line targets that Oklahoma is going after in the 2024 cycle, because I think the importance of recruiting that position is heightened as you prepare for the move to the SEC. You've got to win some of these battles down the stretch. You absolutely have to have David Stone. But boy, how big would it be? Even more so than it would be in any other cycle. But on the precipice of the move to the SEC, how huge would it be for this program if they were able to land Dominic McKinley over Ohio State and LSU? How big would it be if somehow, some way they managed to swing Joseph Jonah back from Georgia, even though I consider that unlikely at this point?
Very unlikely.
How colossal would it be if they lock down Williams Nwaneri, and ideally relatively early in the process from where we stand right now? Like if you can get that kid locked down in the next month or two, man, you're feeling pretty good heading into the fall about where this recruiting class stands and about where your defensive line stands as you prepare for the move to the toughest football conference in America.
So on that note, obviously there's other talents that we didn't talk about. Zena Mosloo, Danny Okoye, obviously Wyatt Gilmore. And Wyatt Gilmore is, bro, that's one of the best freezes of all time. I'm not even going to lie. Wyatt Gilmore is, for those, if you're watching on the video, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, I'm sorry. It was a good face. But Wyatt Gilmore is one of those guys that Oklahoma, this staff in particular, has done a really good job of going after these high 3-star guys that by the end of their senior year have a really good chance to be top 250 guys. They just evaluate really well. I mean, you look at Colton Vasek last year, like that was one that they evaluated and got way out in front of everybody else. And that's why they landed him there for 3 months or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then I know he transferred, but Derek LeBlanc, he had a rough spring. Obviously, coming in was underweight and all that type of stuff. But I talked to somebody yesterday, was like, he has all the talent in the world, and there's a good chance wherever he goes, he'll eventually be really successful if he just stays out of his own way. And what they mean is he has to stop looking at the depth chart and those in front of him and start worrying about himself. The second he starts worrying about himself and focusing on himself is the day he's going to become who everybody thought he could be. And so you have talents like that. Obviously, look at Ashton Sanders. Ashton Sanders was another guy that they recruited. They landed. He was a 3-star at the time, right? He ends up being a 4-star by the time all the evaluations are done, all the rankings are redone. And he's a good player. And who do we hear the most buzz on as a freshman outside of PJ Adebawore? Ashton Sanders right now, right? So there's some validity to this staff understanding how to evaluate and what needs to be done. So I to me, yes, you have to land David Stone. That is number one on the docket. That is the number one guy on your board, no matter of any position, of anything. You would have to go David Stone, number one, 1A. 1B would have to be Williams Nwaneri, and then 3 would have to be Dominic McKinley. And by the way, I'm really proud of myself for saying Mosloo and Nwaneri today, by the way. I'm trying to pronounce these dudes' names.
Yeah, these we get a few of those names every single cycle that are tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
but yeah, that's what they have to do. They have to have those. You can probably miss on 2 of those guys, but you got to land one. You got to land one. You would rather be 2 for 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. But my point is if you miss on Nwaneri, you have a Mosloo, you have a Okoye, you've got Gilmore, you got those guys at the same position that you could fill in, and that would do a really good job and turn out to be probably off-conference guys potentially by the time their career is done. But if you were to land Nwaneri and Stone, you have 2 guys that could be top 5 picks. And I get the fanaticism part of it and the prettiness of all that and the glitz and the glam of having those type of guys on your roster, but you also have to think about when Clemson became Clemson, right? In 2015. Who was their best player?
Deshaun
Who was it?
Watson.
Okay. On defense. We were talking defense.
Isaiah Simmons, probably.
In 2015?
Oh, in 2015, no, it would have been
Vic Beasley.
is Beasley still around?
Yeah, he was like a junior or senior that year, I believe. Because I
No, he
remember,
was
didn't he
a
walk? He walked on the bus, did he not? And
no,
talk crap to him.
no, he had so he was an All-American in 2013 and 2014, but then he was drafted before Clemson made their run to the national title.
Okay, well he was the guy that I'm talking about. Like he created the D line to be as ferocious as it was at Clemson. It was my point because you didn't hear a lot about Clemson this, Clemson that until Vic Beasley, a 2-star tight end, and Venables gets there to Clemson and goes, "I want that guy on my defense," and he turns out to be just a freaking superstar, right? And my point is that you have to trust the coaches. I know that you can't take that step to the national title, and that's where Oklahoma fans want it. They want national title. Get that. But right now, in where Oklahoma is, they were 6-7 last year. This ain't 99 to 2000, in my opinion, where you're gonna just all of a sudden be playing for a natty. I get the left-handed quarterback. I get he wears number 8. I get that they're going for number 8. I get all the kind of connect the dots that the fans want to do. But you got to take steps. And that step is continue to land guys, continue to evaluate guys and develop guys. And that's how Oklahoma is going to get to where they need to be. But I think, again, the meltdown will be of epic proportions if David Stone does not end up at Oklahoma. And I think he's going to. I think you think he's going to. And I talk to the kid quite often, and I feel pretty strongly about things. But he's also a tough nut to crack at times. And he'll he'll try to deflect and move the pieces here or there and make people feel like things aren't the way they need to be and all that for Oklahoma. And there's a reason. I mean, he's building his brand, he's building the suspense, and that's what kids do. So if recruiting is not for you, I wouldn't pay attention to the Davis Stone recruitment. That's my advice.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to be, yeah.
You can't handle the peaks and valleys. It's going to be a rough few months for you between Stone and Nwaneri in particular, because
Do you think Nwaneri's going to do that though? Like, do you think he'll? I think he's going to wake up one day and just be like, I'm freaking done, dude, and just announce.
I
That
I
just seems like his
don't like
personality.
in all transparency, I don't think that Oregon visit ends up happening in September.
Mm-hmm.
But Will's also a little bit of like he's a different kid. He operates on his own wavelength, and so there's, I think with that kid, there's a sense of, you feel like you know what's going on. Even the people closest to him feel like they know what's going on, but can't 100% rule anything out.
Right. So, okay, let's do this after. I'm gonna do a class prediction thing this week. But what is your? You got to pick 5 D linemen because I think that's what they'll end up taking is 5 total, whether in between D tackle and D end. I think in reality they would like 3. I think they would like to take 6. I think they would like to take 3 D tackles and 3 D ends. But I don't know that that's going to take place. But so let's kind of cut it down to 5 because I think that's more realistic right now, right? Would you agree with that?
I'll bet you they end up with 6.
Okay, let's do 6.
Okay.
Let's do 6. For me, it's Stone, It's Nigel Smith. It's Nwaneri. Nwaneri.
Those are the three easy ones. I would say those are the three everybody is kind of in agreement on right now that Oklahoma leads for, should close on. So beyond those three, that's where it kind of gets.
There's a fourth. We just put FutureCast in for him.
Oh yeah, well I don't know if everybody across the board was.
I figured since the FutureCast out there, they did. So fourth would
Okay,
be
so yeah, we'll throw in
Wyatt
Wyatt Gilmore then.
Okay.
And yes, I would agree.
So now it gets down to the Dominic McKinleys, the Joseph Jonah Jones of the world, the Danny Okoyes, the Zena Amozalus, like those type of guys. And as weird as it sounds, and this sounds just so absurd, right? His brother plays for Texas, right? I think Oklahoma leads for Zena.
Well, I agree with you. And that's not an uncommon sentiment right now behind the scenes. Now, admittedly,
I think it's going to be very hard to pull, though.
Well, and he's got that Texas official visit coming up. And you know that Texas's pitch to Zena Mosloo is going to be the exact same as Oklahoma's pitch to Eli Bowen, right? Are you really going to go play on the opposite side of the Red River Showdown against your brother? You
It's
realize
very
what you're
Eli
setting
Bowen.
yourself
Yeah,
up
very
for?
Eli Bowen. Yeah,
Yeah.
very much.
So you know that's the pitch that Texas is going to come with is, hey, with how bitter this rivalry is, do you really want to be lining up opposite your brother in the Cotton Bowl? Do you
Pretty
really want to
cool.
pit yourself against him? You really want to make your family straddle the 50-yard line and have to face a very hard decision as to who they want to root for in the most heated rivalry in this region of the country?
They could have the sewn on, half the parents could have the sewn on half jersey,
Yeah,
right?
I don't think that'll work for Oklahoma or Texas.
We've seen it for Bedlam and stuff. I mean, so I'm just saying, like, I know it's a reach, but so do you not think he'll be a part of the class, even
So
though
like
it's weird, right? Like you're like, oh
again,
man,
like and the distinction I would draw is the same one that I've drawn with Dominic McKinley when asked about him coming out of the ChampU BBQ weekend for Oklahoma. I think they lead for him. That does not mean I think he ends up in the class. And I feel the same way about Zeno Mosloo. Yes, I think Oklahoma leads for him. I have every reason to believe that is the case. But when push comes to shove, is he going to be willing to step into that situation at Oklahoma opposite his brother and feel confident in it without getting apprehensive when it comes time for pen to hit paper? That's my read on Zeno Mosloo. I know you were out in front of the Jaden Jackson stuff. I get the feeling that if Oklahoma locks down David Stone sooner rather than later, that might be a real positive boost to their chances with Jaden Jackson, which are already pretty strong.
Yeah, so it will. And I was going to have him as one of my other picks. I think he's going to be in the class. As far as things go today, now he's got a visit to Texas. Texas is where they led, supposedly heading into this week. But his relationship with David Stone came in and hung out with him all day on Tuesday. That was interesting, right? Like, not committed, but I'm hanging out with the recruit all day long. So, like, there's so many things that Stone is doing where you're just like, man, like, it just screams silent, right? But then he goes out and he tweets, I'm not a silent commit. Stop making things up. Blah, 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 blah. Like, I'm not blah, blah, blah on him. It's just that I'm just not, I don't know what he tweeted word for word. It's a crazy recruitment, dude, but I still think he's going to be in the class. So I have David Stone, Williams, and Winery, Jaden Jackson, um, Nigel Smith, and then
Gilmore.
I'll go with Gilmore, and then As crazy as it sounds, I know it's crazy. I'm going to say Danny Okoye is going to end up in the class.
I think that's far less crazy than it would have sounded a couple months ago.
Right, but he's taking an official visit. Like, he is literally staying to his. And as long as, and this is my point, if Oklahoma can win 8, 9, 10 games this year, not only will it be easier for this coaching staff is so good at recruiting, Parker, right? They're so good that 6 and 7 hardly has deterred them at all. It's been kind of crazy, but obviously they have the history, they have the resume. Like, look, this happened at Oklahoma when we first showed up. This happened at Clemson when we first showed up. It's back at Oklahoma. It happened again. But what happens in year 2, 3, and 4? We will be playing for a national title at some point. And that's what they're selling people. I'm speaking as I'm one of those coaches, and that's their literal pitch is like, look at what we did everywhere. We became the power everywhere we went. The power in college football there for a little bit. And it can happen again, and we'll get you to the league and all that type of stuff. And so you look at that and you're like, okay, I buy into it. And that's why you see Oklahoma in on such elite talent after going 6 and 7. It's very Georgia, first year of Kirby Smart. After the first year of Kirby Smart, it's very Nick Saban after the first year of Alabama. All the things that we said it was going to be like. Remember that, Parker? We're like, think about it. Think about Dabo. Think about all those guys, and then look at it's Oklahoma. It's not this. It's not some other school that you just went 6 and 7 at. There's a history, and people believe you can build into that. And so that's why I have Okoye there, because I think they're going to win 8, 9, 10 games this year. I'm more of a 9 and 3 type guy, but even with that schedule, I just think it's hard to go 6 and 7 to 12 wins, but it's possible. We've seen it before at Oklahoma, and so it's possible. But I still think that's good enough to go, oh, they're moving definitely in the right direction, and they're going to the SEC. I'll go ahead and see if I can't help them take that next step. And so I think if they do that with him announcing in November, that's where he becomes part of it. So it's Okoye, Nwaneri, Gilmore, Smith, Stone, Jackson. Who's yours?
So I obviously would agree on Nwaneri, Stone, Gilmore, Nigel Smith, and Jaden Jackson. If I had to pick a sixth, man, we might be in lockstep, because I might go Okoye over Omozulu in the end. Just for the sake of
There you go. Do it.
Just for the sake of being different, I'll throw in Omozulu. I'll say he's number 6. I'll say, you know what? Miguel Chavis breaks down whatever inhibition Zena has about playing against Texas, playing against his brother, coming to the University of Oklahoma, and they get him in the class. So there you go. That's my 6.
All right. Who are the corners? That's the corners, and O-line is the other.
So you got one in Jeremiah Newcomb.
Yep.
I think for better or worse, we're all taking another one for granted in Eli Bowen. Number 3 for me,
Oklahoma.
Number 3 for me would be Devin Jordan. Like Oklahoma in that race in the long run. Yeah,
here's my thing though. What if I told you that they could only take 3 and they're not going to take 4?
I mean, that's where I would leave it. Bowen, Jordan, Jeremiah Newcomb.
What about Denson?
What about Denson? You tell me.
He's announcing on July 1st.
Uh-huh.
You're trying to throw me on the spot here because I've been the one digging on it.
Oh no, trust me. I've been digging on it too. And Oklahoma's got a leg to stand on there. No question about it.
That's the scary part about it. And I talked to somebody last night that's like, dude, I don't know what we're going to do. He goes, it's kind of a crap show as far as numbers go, because we're in such good spot for all these people. And I was like, what? So how are you going to justify this? And they go, I don't know. I said, so if Kobe Black, You say you win 10 games and Kobe Black or Kobe Black just loves the momentum you guys have, and obviously he has a good relationship with Valai. What do you do? And they're like, I don't know. Like, you take Kobe Black always and forever, but that's going to take from somebody else. So you're going to have to push somebody else out to take that in, and or push somebody else that's already on the roster out to make that happen. And but that's the world we live in today in college football. Unfortunately, it's not like it used to be, where if you had a scholarship, even though they're year to year, that's something fans don't realize. They're not guaranteed every year. They're guaranteed, but they're not, if that makes sense. Like, legally binding, they're not guaranteed. You've got to re-sign your scholarship every year after it ends. It's 12 months. You have to go in and, DocuSign or whatever to get your next year's scholarship. They're not a 4-year deal. They're year to year. So that's going to be the hard part, bro. Like, it's going to be difficult for Oklahoma. I'm with you. Obviously, you got Newcomb. Is Devin Jordan going to announce soon enough? Is going to be the big issue with him, because he still is like, I want to go to Alabama. I want to do Miami. But Oklahoma's really trying to work on him. Like, dude, we're going to fill up and you're going to be left stranded if those guys fill up too. Like, you're going to have to make a decision soon enough. So I think he ends up deciding, because he has like this thing where he's like, I want to sign in August, or I want to announce in August. Oh, nope, I want to announce in October or whatever. And then he'll go back and forth. Like, he's very indecisive about how he wants to announce. So I think he's going to end up announcing in July or August at some point, because I think he has to. He just has to. If he wants to go to Oklahoma, he's going to have to do it. He's going to be taken. So I'll take Jordan as well. I'll take Eli Bowen, and I'm going to say this. Because Denson can play both positions, they can probably take him as an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say Denson's a part of the class right now. And I'm not confident in that. I'm confident in that Oklahoma's in a really good spot. And he's very pro OU on his Twitter. Like, everything is Oklahoma,
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma, Oklahoma. But we'll see, because numbers, they're what right now.
Yep.
So you can't take 40 or 50 like you could the previous few classes. And I know that's an exaggeration. The number 40s isn't, but 50 is an exaggeration. But you can't take 40 like you could, and like they were taking, right, between transfers and recruits. So you can't do that anymore. Like, now it's pick and choose. You've got numbers.
So as far as the offensive line goes, that was the other
Yep.
position group you asked
Yep.
about. Now, couple targets are off the board, as we mentioned. Jason Zandamela has gone to USC. Daniel
That was an
Cruz.
awesome video, by the way.
Yeah, great video. Awesome. He's not officially committed to Texas, but that's kind of the consensus expectation across the industry, is that Daniel Cruz is going to go to Texas. Where does that leave Oklahoma? Well, you got Isaiah Autry committed.
Mm-hmm.
I would say beyond that, beyond Autry, if I'm projecting Oklahoma to take 4 linemen, and by the way, Max Anderson, another guy that is off the board now after having committed to Tennessee yesterday, I feel good about Oklahoma and Grant Bricks. And Oklahoma feels good about Oklahoma and Grant Bricks. So if they can close on the 4-star tackle from Logan, Iowa, that's huge, because I am firmly of the opinion that kid is the highest ceiling offensive tackle in the entire 2024 class, because of how comparatively underdeveloped he is in comparison to so many of the other top offensive linemen in the country. Because he's not like a gym rat who trains with ex NFL players, or, puts himself through this ridiculous regimen to try and build strength and build muscle. No, he's just a country strong kid, man. His family does livestock competitions. Every ounce of strength and muscle mass that kid has is purely natural. So that is to say, once you get him in a collegiate weight room, the ceiling is so high once he has more of a formal structure to his workouts than he ever has before. And so for him to be as dominant and as advanced and as strong as he is, having never really been through the same things that many of the other elite offensive linemen in the country have been through, it's part of the reason why I love Bricks as a prospect and think he could push into 5-star contention by the end of the cycle. Now, beyond Bricks, I'm not as confident in it as I once was. But, like, especially with how many visits he's taken recently. But after that OU unofficial earlier this week, I am starting to get a sense that OU might be in the best position for Casey Poe. Now, he's going to have a tough decision to make because Texas Tech has invested heavily in recruiting him under Joey McGuire. Clemson is a school that he has a lot of love for. Alabama is a school that he has a lot of love for. He's deciding on July 12th, and he's not the kind of kid to, kick the can down the road and drag his feet where he doesn't need to. So he's committed to making a decision here in the not too distant future, but with the knowledge that his last visit is this Alabama trip, June 23rd through the 25th, you do kind of get the impression that he and his family are going to take a couple weeks to process everything, figure out the pros and cons of each of the schools that they're considering. In the end, though, I'm not confident enough to drop a future cast because I at least until the other side of this Alabama visit. But I think Oklahoma still maintains the slight edge right now, even as hard as Clemson and Tech and Bama and Auburn have been pushing. So
right.
I'll stick with my original May prediction that Casey Poe ends up in the offensive line class. And this is me throwing a dart, admittedly. Like, this is the least confidence I have in any of those picks. I'll say Oklahoma for Bennett Warren, too. Just because I think Michigan already has 5 offensive line commits. I know he really likes Michigan, and it's become clear that Michigan and OU are the top 2. All right, so unless Tennessee just blows him away, or unless that proximity poll leads him back to Texas A&M, which admittedly is not totally out of the question, I think at this point, Michigan and OU are the 2 schools that should and do feel the best about their chances with Bennett Warren. And I have to imagine Bill Bedenbaugh and the OU staff are going to say, man, look at all the talent that Michigan's already assembled in that offensive line group. You really want to go be just another guy there? No, come be the cornerstone of our class here. So I'll say Oklahoma comes out on the winning end there.
Okay, break it down for me. You had Bricks, Warren,
Poe, and Isaiah Autry.
And Autry. Obviously, Autry for me. I think we're going to go lockstep on this too, bro, because there's not a whole lot of options for Oklahoma at the line position right now. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, this is one of those years where you could see them only taking like 2 high school kids and going and getting 2 or 3 transfers. You know what I mean? Like that, it does. It feels like one of those years, right? Potentially. But for the sake of this little segment that we're doing, yeah, I'll say Autry, obviously, Bricks, though I'm still worried about the girlfriend aspect at K-State. Very worried about that because girlfriends are undefeated, as Oklahoma knows. And even though she's gone, maybe SMU's undefeated when the girlfriends. Could you imagine Peyton Bowen transferring down to SMU? That would be something. I'm gonna go Bennett Warren, and it's a gut feeling, man. Sharon Moore is a bad mother scuther on that recruiting trail. If Bill Bedenbaugh ever, hangs it up and decides I'm done, because he's making almost $1 million a year, right? And he's been doing it for
if
like
and when he does hang it up. Yeah, I think You
I
know
think
who the
it's
next
pretty
offensive
obvious.
line coach likely is.
Yeah, he's going to be the next O line coach, and I know Sharon. That would be a big deal for him. Like he has always been very pro OU still. Um, so I have Bricks, Autry, Bennett Warren. But you know when you say Bennett Warren, like I always want to say Warren Bennett just because Warren Buffett for some odd reason. It just flows. I had to catch myself. Mr. Nebraska, I'm sure you get that. Understand what I'm saying.
No question.
I guess I'll go Casey Poe. And again, I'm not super confident in that. It's just that Poe didn't take an official visit to Oklahoma because he couldn't because of the rules as far as right now. Now, starting during the season, you can take as many as you want. And I think that's going to be really interesting to see who decides, I want to take an official. You get to take as many as you want. But I think that's going to be not a big deal for the most part for the majority of the players because the universities can only afford to bring in so many guys and they only have so many numbers. So I think that people don't realize that the numbers didn't change for the schools, but it did for the players. But because he's taken so many visits, I'm just not sure. Like, do you think he announces by August potentially? Like, what's your take on that?
I would say most of these guys are probably shooting for a decision no later than August.
No, I
I'd be.
agree with that, but you talk to Poe more than anybody, so that's why I ask.
Oh, you were talking about Poe? I thought you were talking about
Hmm.
Warren.
No, I
But
think
no,
Warren
yeah,
announces
Casey
sooner
Poe's
than
deciding
later.
July 12th. That's his date.
Okay. See, I didn't remember. There's so many dates I have to remember, and I don't cover him the way you do, so I definitely just kind of leave that up to you. Um, yeah, I guess I'll go with them. That'll be my four. I know it's boring that we didn't disagree on anything, but folks, there's not very many line for us to choose from at this point. I think Weston Davis, I think, is one that we just kind of always just kind of throw out of our minds, right? Like, what do you think Oklahoma's chances are with him?
They've got a good as chance of, well, I guess the best way I can put it is they've got as good of a chance as anybody.
Yeah, he OV'd you, right?
Yes.
Yeah, 9th through the 11th. So my question is why don't we talk about him more? Because it seems like Oklahoma's in a good spot for him.
I
It just kind of he always slips our mind because he's not very out there, right? Like he
No,
just
he's
isn't.
not at all. He's
I
not at
was
all.
looking through the O line offers yesterday. I was like, damn, man, like I never think of Weston Day ever, like ever think of him. And yet everything I know about him,
And
and when I talk to Oklahoma people, they bring him up. And I'm like, dude, I forgot you were even recruiting that dude. Like, that's how weird it is.
he just does not put a whole lot out there about his recruiting process. And I think
And where he lives is he's way down there too.
Beaumont, I think
Mhm.
the conventional wisdom would have suggested heading into his OU official that it was going to be Alabama or Texas A&M in the end, but it did, like, from everybody I talked to coming out of the ChampU BBQ, or not the ChampU BBQ weekend, but the June 9th official visit weekend, OU made some really solid progress with Weston Davis. And again, like, it's a hard one to gauge, admittedly, but it definitely feels like OU's got as good a shot as anybody there. Now, another guy that we haven't talked a whole lot about in the offensive line room is Marcus Easley, who released his top three, right? Oklahoma, Alabama, Tennessee. Feels like Georgia is also lurking there, and maybe he's trying to pull a little CJ Hurd type of action, omitting the school he actually likes the best from the top list in order to maintain the illusion of subterfuge and surprise. But there are a lot of options on the table right now for Oklahoma, and I think those like in general, when I evaluate this position group, you certainly get the sense that we're going to have a very clear idea of who ends up in the class and who doesn't within the next 3 to 4 weeks. A lot of these guys are operating on timetables that are not that dragged out, not that extensive. Poe's announcing on July 12th. Caden Massey will be announcing by the end of the month. Doesn't feel like Eddie Pierre-Louis is too far off from making his decision one way or the other. And obviously Zanamella already chose. Max Anderson already chose. Grant Bricks, same deal. Don't know the exact timeline there, but it doesn't feel like it's going to be long. So by the end of July, I'll bet you, regardless of who's in it, Oklahoma's got their entire offensive line class. I'll bet you that happens by the end of July.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we've been trying to tell everybody this, right, for a while. Like, hey, June and July are going to be fun. June's been really fun with the visits and all that type of stuff. You're starting to see some commits roll in, and OU gain some momentum with some really big names, right? July, August is where you're going to see, probably through like August 15th or so, I would say, is where you're probably going to see a lot of that momentum come to fruition and it tangibly be right in front of you, right? You can see the evidence. It's not us telling you, you're going to see the evidence happen, and it's going to be exciting. And that is why we need you on OU Insider. And right now is the best time to do it. You will be able to enjoy that excitement if you sign up right now. We're recording this on a Thursday. It'll be out on a Thursday, I'm assuming. If Spencer will probably get it out today, right, Parker? That means
it'll be out today. Yeah.
You'll have about 36 hours to sign up and get OU Insider for free, all the way to August 10th. That's big time. That means for 45 days, you don't have to pay a stinking thing, and you get to have OU Insider and all its glory and demise sometimes right in front of you. You get to talk with a lot of diehard OU fans. I'm telling you, we're pushing 5 figures in subs now, and that is going to be scary. Once we start rolling on OU Insider, we're starting to get back up to our 247 days size, and we are really, really, really excited about it. And that's all thanks to you guys. But right now, you get it for free all the way to Friday, June 23rd at 11 p.m. If you don't sign up by then, you do not get it for free. So I'm urging you, if you really are interested and you want to be in the know with all these commits that are about to start happening, now's the time. Now is the time. Plus, we're going to have a lot of off-season notes on the team. Lots and lots and lots. So we've already had quite a few, but we're going to have a lot more as fall camp gets closer and as it starts rolling around. You're going to get the first 10 days of fall camp on us in August. So can't beat that. All right. As for my, and if you want to go sign up, you just go to ouinsider.com, click sign in. It's real simple. Promo code ChampU23. Promo code ChampU23. All right. For my for everything that you talked about with the offensive lineman, I think we need to talk about the commits. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Dozie, Ezenkama, and did I pronounce that right?
Ezenkama, yeah.
Boom. There we go. All right, I'm on a roll today, bro. This is new for me. I'm in new territory, Parker. Dozie, Ezenkama, and then obviously James Nesta. I will start with Nesta. Obviously, that was kind of a shocker. I wouldn't say it's shocker, but it felt like, oh, you had some work to do coming into the official visit, right? Because it was Miami and North Carolina that seemed really up there. I know that you had posted that you thought Oklahoma could make up ground on the official visit, but that's never a guarantee. And they did more than that. The baseball program was a big coup for them. I'm telling everybody, as far as Taylor, and we're going to get to Taylor Tatum, I promise you. As far as Taylor Tatum goes, that stuff doesn't happen if Skip Johnson in his baseball program weren't playing in the national title the year before.
No.
So this is getting two dudes that are that talented, and obviously Tatum hasn't committed, so but potentially getting two dudes, I would sit here and say thank you to Skip Johnson I was you guys, because his program, Reggie Willits, those guys have done a phenomenal job working hand in hand with the OU football program, recruiting, helping each other out. It's been a beautiful thing to watch from our perspective, being behind the scenes, and it's taken a lot of logistics to make it work. So I think that can't be understated or overstated enough, to be honest. I think it's understated right now. It can't be overstated enough. But he's a really good athlete, man. He's long, 6'4", super rangy, fast, and super athletic. Obviously, being that he's also a major league draft pick. And I was told he will not be eligible for the draft because he is going to school in January. So the 24 draft, he is not eligible for.
Okay. Well, there you go.
There you go.
Now, and again, even if he had been eligible for the draft, he's a good baseball player. I don't think he's quite the baseball player that Taylor Tatum is, in the sense that you would have really had to worry about him taking big time MLB money with an early draft slot. But he's going to be a boon for Skip Johnson and his pitching staff, because he can crank that fastball up to the mid 90s. He's physically imposing. Obviously, he is in excellent physical shape, which you can't, like, there are some baseball pitchers that are a little bit pudgy and they just got some heat on the fastball because of their natural girth, and the ceiling's a lot lower in general for guys like that.
David
Well, there's not a
Wells.
whole lot you can do with that. But getting a guy that's just chiseled out of stone like Nesta is, and also has the ability to bring it from the mound the way that he does, it's a phenomenal ad for Skip and the baseball team. But also, man, I'm just really impressed with his football tape. And I'm not trying to make a player comp here because they're not the same player, but I mentioned this on the radio. I'll reiterate it. He gives me some R. Mason Thomas vibes, in that the best way you could, I think the best word that encapsulated R. Mason Thomas's senior film was angry. That dude just played angry. And you get the same sense watching Nesta's tape. The guy's he just pursues with a sense of anger and desire. And so I think when you're trying to figure what type of linebacker is going to have success in Brent Venables' defense, it's a guy like that immediately springs to mind, right? Somebody that is just straight up aggressive and controlled aggression. I think more so, not wild, over pursuing type aggression, but controlled aggression, knows where to attack, knows the angles to take. I'm a huge fan of Nesta. I can see why he's regarded as a blue chip player, a 4-star in the industry composite. And this was a guy that Oklahoma had to have, with Peyton Pierce going to Ohio State, Easton Baker pulling one over on everybody and committing to Illinois. They had to have a linebacker at some point. They got a good one in James Nesta. And I also think that, bringing in Dozie Ezekama for Emmett Jones and that receiver, like that's a pretty significant addition in his own right. And I know some people are going to look at it and say, well, he's just a 3-star, whatever. If he plays, great. If not, nobody expects him to anyway. But no, I don't think Emmett Jones makes that late offer. I don't think he gets Dozie to camp, offers him, brings him on an OV, and takes the commitment all within the span of 2 weeks, if he's not very convinced that kid is going to be a dominant receiver at the University of Oklahoma. And with Oklahoma's decorated lineage of elite receivers, you don't take a kid like that unless you're confident that he's going to be a guy that you can rely on as a cornerstone of your offense down the line, because you're never going to have any shortage of receivers that want to come to the University of Oklahoma. I think what Dozie brings to the table more so than anything is size. And that's something that Oklahoma doesn't have a ton of right now. across the receiver room, you look at the three trees, if you will, in J.J. Hester and Jaden Gibson and Nick Anderson. Those are some sizable bodies, but you see a lot more of those more diminutive slot-esque type of receivers right now on OU's roster than you do the big boys. And so Zion Kearney's got some size. I don't know that he's what you would quantify as a big boy. Dozie Ezekama is unquestionably at 6'4", a big boy. So
Oh yeah.
I love the addition. Obviously, he's got the bloodline with his brother Eric playing for Emmett at Tech and now a member of the Miami Dolphins. No complaints whatsoever with the Sooners electing to take the commitment from Ezekama and adding him to this wide receiver room.
I'm with you. I think he's long. He has the frame to put on some pretty good muscle and weight. That's going to make him a formidable guy in the passing game. Honestly, like he's going to be a big body guy you can throw up there that has long arms. He's got a great catch radius. And we've seen it in 7-on-7. You go watch him do 7-on-7. He's not afraid of the contact at all. That guy almost lives. He's not going to be that guy that stretches the field horribly for you. But what he is going to do is make those difficult catches because he's going to take the shot and he's going to hold on to the ball. You see it in his film. You see it in 7-on-7. You see it in just his attitude. Like he's just that dude when it comes to making plays like that. So I really like that get. I love it actually. And think that it's a really good balance because I think Zion Kearney, as big as he is, he's more of a finesse receiver. Like he's not, he's built more physical. That's a funny dichotomy between him and Ezekama is like, he's built more physical than Ezekama is right now, but Ezekama is more physical than he is. But when you talk about speed, Kearney doesn't, come in second to almost hardly anybody. Maybe Petaway. I mean, that'd probably be it. Like that dude, or KJ Daniels, obviously. But those dudes are different breeds when it comes to speed. Kearney can flat fly. He's a guy that's going to be able to stretch the field and stuff like that. Dozie's going to be that big body Travis Wilson type guy when it's all said and done that they're going to throw over the middle. They're going to be able to count on him to make plays. I actually, you want to know a good comparison would have been Justin Brown. If you remember Justin Brown in 2012, I think that's a good comparison for Ezekama, don't you? As far as just playing style goes, can do some things stretching the field, but mostly you're just gonna. He's a jump ball over the middle, make the tough catches, yak yards after the catch, all that type of stuff. Would you agree with that?
I can see that, certainly.
Yeah. That'd be my comparison. I'm trying to think of somebody a little bit more current, and I really can't. 27. Yeah, you would like to think CeeDee Lamb, but CeeDee Lamb's in his own little.
Yeah, well, that guy's going to be one of the top 5 highest paid receivers in the NFL soon. So
yeah, you don't want to go there with that, even though there is some similarities. But yeah, no, I think Justin Brown's a really good comparison. He was drafted by the Steelers, played in the league for a little bit. So, let's talk about Taylor Tatum before we close this thing out. I think that's what a lot of people want to hear is our take on that and why we put in some future casts. I want to make it clear though. Parker and I discussed putting in a future cast together for 48 hours before one was put in. And we decided on Sunday evening when we started to hear buzz. And then in particular, we redecided Monday morning, literally, that there would be zero future cast put in. We were not leading the charge on that. We were not going to be the ones that created the hype. We did enough by the reports that he and I did on OU Insider. And if you want to go check that out, you can. You got to do is go up to the top right, click Taylor Tatum. You can find Parker and I's. They're probably still pinned, actually. I don't know. But yeah, that created a lot of stir. And then all of a sudden, the On3 guys decided to throw their name in the hat. So Parker and I made a few calls. I did a little write up. We put our future casts in following them because we were 100% not going to lead the charge on that. Because if that turns sideways, nope. and this is one of those recruitments that even though there's all these future casts in or picks or RPMs or crystal balls put in, it's not a done deal. It's done, but it's not done. So until he announces, because Taylor Tatum's so quiet, you kind of sit back and bite your fingernails a little bit, right? Like you just don't know. But Oklahoma killed it again. Skip Johnson, Reggie Willits, Ryan Gaines, the director of player personnel. Those guys were fantastic, helping Oklahoma with the baseball program, helping Oklahoma football, and DeMarco Murray and Jeff Levy and Brent Venables and all those guys really paint the picture for Taylor Tatum. Like they painted a perfect picture for him, showed what they could do. And one of the things that they did was say, I know USC's using the Kyler Murray stuff as their kind of format and how they did that. So the OU baseball program said, nope. The football program didn't change anything. And they're not going to because there's too many moving parts. When you've got 100 players out there and you've got another 70, coaches or support staff and all that, managers, all that type of stuff. They can't move. They can't move their schedule like that. It's not that easy. So what OU baseball did is they pulled out how they did that they had saved it and showed this is what we did for Kyler Murray. We got super creative to make sure he was able to get everything that he needed done and be around the team as much as possible by us doing this, and showed it to him. And they said, don't fall for what other people say. And I think that was probably the biggest thing, was what the baseball program put in front of him. And that's not to undermine what DeMarco Murray has done, because he's the one that set it up. Obviously, he's the one that got them there. And him being best friends with Taylor Tatum's dad is something that I've reported for a month and a half now.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that's out there even more publicly than it was. So these are things that we knew, and we knew going into it. That's why Parker and I said before, we weren't going to put a pick into USC, because we wanted to wait and see how this visit went, because we knew Oklahoma had some momentum behind the scenes. Nobody wanted to buy into it. And yet we were like, we're going to hold off. Like, you talk to the people around Oklahoma and they have a really good sense of what's going on there. And I know some people are like, I think Oklahoma's wrong on this. I don't think they have blah, blah, blah. Nope. They knew because of how close DeMarco was with the dad, where they stood. And now you're seeing it come to play, right? Like it's all playing out in Oklahoma's favor. Now that could change. USC could make another pitch, could sway it in their direction, but right now it doesn't feel like it's trending that way at all. And it actually feels like it's getting further and further away from USC. Would you agree, Parker?
Yeah, look, this is everything points in OU's direction here, and it would take one heck of a pendulum swing in favor of USC for this to go haywire. And man, I think Oklahoma, like in the end, they went kind of an unconventional route, seemingly pushing baseball first. And obviously, like, I think what helps most of all in this is that they're arguably, especially with a two-sport player, there are no a two-sport running back at that. Oklahoma's kind of hit the jackpot, because for a player like that, there aren't two better individuals equipped to recruit against Lincoln Riley than DeMarco Murray and Skip Johnson. Skip Johnson, who had to handle Kyler Murray's schedule and had to walk that balance beam and share him with Lincoln Riley.
Mm-hmm.
And then DeMarco Murray, who had the opportunity to go be running backs coach at USC, had the opportunity to commit to USC back in the day under Pete Carroll, and turned USC down once, turned him down again when Riley made the move out there. Javonte Barnes will tell you that in the latter stages of his recruitment, he came down to OU and USC. What's evident with Taylor Tatum is that his recruitment's coming down to OU and USC. And so for DeMarco Murray, man, USC fans are going to hate that guy if they don't already, if Taylor Tatum ends up a Sooner, because it feels like he just lives to victimize the Trojans over and over and over again.
He has. He's been doing that ever since he came out of high school, whenever it was down between OU and USC, and he chose Oklahoma. And it was all because they wanted him as a cornerback, and DeMarco wanted to be a running back. And I think it worked out pretty well for DeMarco Murray. Didn't he become an MVP? An MVP in the league? Yeah. Not too bad, right? So, yeah, that's where things stand with Taylor Tatum. That's where, at the end of the day, we think Oklahoma is going to end up with a top 10 class, potentially top 5 if they close out on some of the top tier defensive linemen. We haven't even talked about Samaj Jones, the quarterback out of Philadelphia. Everybody compares him to Jalen Hurts, and we all know how Jalen Hurts did at Oklahoma and what he's doing in the league now. I think Oklahoma leads for another quarterback, and I think that's really interesting, to be honest. Like, they're going to take 2 in 24, and they have to, because let's say Michael Hawkins gets injured after, and heaven forbid this happens, obviously, knock on wood, Jackson Arnold goes down, Michael Hawkins goes down. I hate even using this as an example. You need a third guy. And Samaj Jones would be the third guy at this point, or one of the flip-flop, one or the other. I mean, I don't know. We all know that Jackson's probably going to be the guy next year. Like, I think that's a given, right? At this point, like,
sure.
But you need some bullets in the holster, if you will, just in case. And I think this is the play that Oklahoma's doing. And then I think in 25, you have a 3 quarterback battle with Sperry, Hawkins, and Jones. And I think that'll be one for the books, man. Those are 3 dynamic quarterbacks. And they're all different. All so different between each other. And I think that's going to be the fun part if Levy's still around. Because obviously he could take a head coaching job at any point. He's already been offered him at a few schools. I think that would be that's going to be really fun to watch. I will say this, and before we close out, say he gets a job offered to I'm trying to think of middle tier. Let's say Missouri offers Jeff Levy a job. Okay. Head coach. Oklahoma says, we're paying you $1.8 million. We'll pay you $3 million to stay the OC at Oklahoma. They're paying you $6 million to be the head coach. Does he stay the OC and try to get a bigger job than Missouri? I know Missouri is a name. It's in the SEC, but at the end of the day, really, how much success can you have at Missouri? It's not long. You can't do long-term success at Missouri.
Well, I think there's.
It's a hypothetical.
Yeah, I think there's a path to long-term success anywhere, to be honest. Like,
I guess
you just have to have the right approach, and you have to have the right people around you. Perfect example right now is Joey McGuire at Texas Tech. How many people would have imagined that hiring a career high school coach in Lubbock, Texas, was going to already pay off the way that it has? They're on the verge of landing a 5-star wide receiver in Micah Hudson. So, again, like, the location, if you're in the Power 5, to me, the location and the brand of the program doesn't matter nearly as much as the vision and the culture and the people. So
you have to have support, though. I think that's the biggest thing.
Sure. Yeah, that certainly helps as well.
Financial support.
Yeah. So look, As far as Missouri goes,
I mean, would you take that job over $3 million, one more year or 2 more years at being the OC? Venables waited forever.
Yeah, would I? No, I wouldn't. But I also think like it's a little the whole conversation is a little premature because do I think Eli Drinkwitz makes it through the year as Missouri head coach? No, I don't. But it feels awkward to be firing him before the season has even started. Like, let's see how it all goes.
I mean, okay. Fair enough. We all kind of have a feeling how this is going to end. Unfortunately for him. All right. That's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast, brought to you by Olipop. Parker, take it away on the Olipop.
Check them out at drinkolipop.com. Use promo code ChampU20 for 20% off your first online order, or go to your local Walmart, Sprouts, Whole Foods, or Target to pick one up. We appreciate Olipop's partnership.
Yes, sir. And if you're not a subscriber to the YouTube or our podcast, no matter what platform you're listening, please give it a thumbs up. Please give it a like. Please subscribe and give it 5 stars. We love it. We really appreciate you guys listening to us. It means a lot. And obviously, we really, really, really can't thank you guys enough. So having said that, please also go to ouinsider.com and get OU Insider for free until August 10th or fall camp. This is the last 2 days. We're recording this on a Thursday. So Friday, June 23rd at 11 p.m., it's over. And you will not get that again. And we really would love for y'all to take advantage of that if you have a chance to. I'd love to see you guys on there. All right. That's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor Sooner podcast, brought to you by Olipop. For my man, Parker Thune, my name's Brandon Drumm. You guys have a blessed day.